Long before the cities rose and the machines hummed, before maps claimed ownership over rivers and mountains, there was a land untouched by the noise of the outside world. Place called Kigalani. Hidden deep in the folds of East Africa, Kigalani was more than a village. It was a living spirit, cradled by ancestral winds and shielded by sacred hills. Two rivers ran through it, one said to hold the tears of the first mother, the other to carry the laughter of the first warrior. People of Kigalani lived not by man's law, but by the law of the ancestors, interpreted through dreams, stars, and signs in nature. The acacia tree, towering and ancient at the center of the village, stood like a guardian, its roots fed by generations of footsteps, its bark etched with blessings, names, and silent promises of lovers long gone. In this place, every birth was a prophecy, every union a strategy, and every soul carried the burden of fulfilling a role defined long before they took their first breath. It was in this world, ordered and unwavering, that a boy named Amani was born. The only son of Chief Kweku, Amani was raised to lead, to fight, and to serve tradition without question. His childhood was carved by the expectations of lineage, trained in the art of war by sunrise and taught the code of leadership by moonlight. Yet beneath the strength in his arms and the discipline in his walk, a question grew, soft at first like a breeze but destined to become a storm. Across the sacred hill, in a modest hut woven from reed and prayer, lived Nyara, daughter of Mama Taluma, the most gifted herbalist and spirit whisperer in the region. Nyara's birth was not accompanied by drums or feasts like Amani's. Instead, the night she was born, every flame in the village flickered 3 times, and a bird not native to their lands sang until sunrise. The elders took it as a sign. A girl born with a knowing. As she grew, it became clear that Nyara was no ordinary child. At age 5, she could read the emotions of animals. At 7, she correctly predicted the illness of the chief's sister 3 days before the symptoms appeared. Her silence spoke volumes, her presence calmed storms in people's hearts. The villagers whispered that she was half spirit. And for that reason, she was chosen young to walk the healer's path, destined to one day replace her mother, marry the spiritual successor Baraza, and become a bridge between the living and the unseen. But despite her devotion to the sacred, Nyara was human. She longed to explore, to feel the rush of freedom, to laugh until her belly hurt, to choose her own story rather than follow one already written for her. She would lie beneath the stars some nights, asking them quietly, "Did you write my life before I even arrived?" It was under this quiet tension between duty and desire that her path began to bend toward Amani, though they had not yet spoken a single word. It was during the festival of the first rains, a celebration older than even the oldest elder, that Amani and Nyara's fates finally crossed. The sky had been dry for months, the earth cracking in places, the crops begging for the kiss of clouds. And then, one evening, as the sun melted into the horizon, the wind shifted, warm and wet. Rain fell. Soft, holy, sacred. The entire village gathered in the circle of the acacia to thank the ancestors. Fires were lit. Drums were summoned. Songs, both joyous and mournful, filled the night. Amani, now 22, stood in the warrior's circle, his skin glowing with sweat, his movements precise, powerful, poetic. Each leap, each strike of his spear was both a dance and a declaration. Meanwhile, Nyara, now 20, moved between the elders, adorned in a robe of white feathers and beads. Her steps were light, yet every movement carried the weight of tradition. Their eyes met as the flames reached their peak. For a moment, it was as if the world had paused to breathe. Amani forgot his steps. Nyara spilled a drop of honey wine. Neither smiled. They simply stared, long enough for the stars to take notice. That night, as the embers cooled and the village drifted to sleep, Nyara walked alone to the acacia, humming a tune no one had taught her. Amani, guided by nothing but instinct, followed. In silence, they stood beneath the tree, 2 hearts thudding in unfamiliar rhythm. They did not speak. But in that silence, something ancient, something sacred, was born. Below is the continuation of your epic narrative, with each minute developed into a richly detailed, full-page-like narrative. This extended version immerses the listener in the world of Kigalani, deepening the emotional journey of Amani and Nyara. You can adjust the pacing as needed for your 10-minute video. In the hushed hours when twilight surrendered to the whispers of night, Amani and Yara found themselves magnetically drawn into a world away from the relentless customs of their people. Beneath the sprawling branches of the ancient acacia, its limbs heavy with generations of secrets, they met in the sanctuary of darkness, a hidden realm where time itself seemed to pause. Every meeting under the moon was a silent defiance, an act of rebellion against a destiny decreed by force of tradition. Here, in the gentle cloak of shadow, Amani and Yara unburdened their souls. He, the warrior molded by duty and hardened by the expectations of his lineage; she, the intuitive spirit whose eyes had seen more than her delicate years should have borne. They spoke in hushed tones, sharing their dreams like precious artifacts. Amani revealed the softness masked by his imposing strength, confessing how each of his practiced steps in battle echoed with an unspoken yearning for something beyond bloodlines, beyond the prescribed honor of war. Nyara, in turn, traced with trembling fingers a secret mark upon the acacia's bark, a symbol that encapsulated her growing hope for a love unfettered by ritual. Every whispered word, every stolen glance, and the quiver of their hearts underlined a promise, one that vibrated against the conventions of their kin. In that sacred isolation, their bond blossomed into an unspoken pledge, a vow that though the world around them was chained by duty, their hearts were free to dream of a life where love could be as boundless as the starry skies above Kigalani. As the days passed and the lingering warmth of their clandestine meetings intertwined with the cool dawn, the delicate balance between duty and desire became an ever-tightening web in which both Amani and Yara felt ensnared. Every sunrise brought with it reminders of the roles they were meant to play. Amani, destined to bear the legacy of his forefathers, was taught that his destiny lay in protecting and expanding the honor of his clan, never in the vulnerability of yielding his heart. His father, Chief Kweku, often recited ancient proverbs by the fireside that warned, "A warrior must not falter at the crossroads of desire, only the brave tread the path of honor." Simultaneously, Nyara's existence was defined by the duty to the spirits, a lineage that offered her eyes to see into the realms of fate and misfortune alike. Her mother, Mama Taluma, insisted that every union was preordained by the gods, that love was but a transient illusion meant to be sacrificed on the altar of destiny. Yet, in defiance of these ancient edicts, the lovers made a choice. They traded secret glances and quiet smiles for tangible tokens of rebellion. One evening, with the earth softly moaning under a sky heavy with unshed rain, Nyara pressed a carefully crafted bracelet into Amani's calloused hand, a delicate circle made of polished river stones that seemed to capture a fragment of the night itself. "If I cannot be yours in this life, let this token bind our souls for all eternity," she murmured, her voice trembling with both fear and hope. In that moment, every rule, every edict of tradition seemed to dissolve into the raw pulse of their shared reality. Their love had become an act of bravery, a luminous beacon in the oppressive darkness of obligation, an exquisite defiance against a world that demanded conformity at the cost of the heart's quiet truth. Inevitably, secrets must surface, and in the world of Kigalani, the flicker of a hidden flame could not remain veiled forever. Suspicion, like a slow-acting poison, crept into the heart of Baraza, the man destined to be Nyara's husband, chosen by the spirits as her rightful guide in the sacred traditions. Baraza, a man both proud and unforgiving, had always held an unwavering belief in destiny. His eyes, sharp as a falcon's, were quick to perceive anomalies. One fateful evening, while Nyara slipped away under the guise of tending to nocturnal herbs, Baraza chose to follow her discreetly. What he witnessed beneath the acacia shattered every preconceived notion of duty. There, in the quiet intimacy of darkness, he saw the forbidden embrace between Amani and Nyara, a gesture that spoke of passion and rebellion rather than the somber rituals of spiritual union. Enraged and wounded by a betrayal that struck at the very heart of his identity, Baraza could not let this transgression go unpunished. With clenched fists and eyes afire, he marched to the council fire where the village elders, custodians of tradition and destiny, had gathered. His words, laced with both venom and sorrow, rang out in the stillness of the pre-dawn, accusing Amani of desecrating the sacred path and Nyara of turning her back on her destined future. The assembly trembled with a mixture of indignation and disbelief. Amani was branded a sinner against his own bloodline, while Nyara was condemned to undergo the ancient ritual of forgetting, a rite designed to erase all memory of forbidden attachments, thereby purging the soul of unholy defiance. In those long, heart-wrenching moments before judgment, the lovers found themselves trapped between the unforgiving dictates of tradition and the fiercely beating pulse of their own truth. The air was thick with imminent sorrow as each member of the council contemplated the fate of two souls intertwined in a dance as old as time, a dance where every step defied the chains of legacy and every heartbeat cried out for freedom. The night of the storm. The night of reckoning arrived with a fury born on the wind, a tempest that mirrored the turmoil in every heart at Kigalani. It was a night when the heavens themselves seemed to bleed their raw emotions, as torrential rains fell from a sky overcome with wrath and compassion alike. In a final bid to escape the crushing weight of predetermined destiny, Amani and Nyara resolved to flee the village. Their plan was as daring as it was desperate, to cross the mighty Great River during the rare celestial alignment known as the Moon of the Three Shadows, a time when the veils between worlds grew thin, and even the gods whispered their blessings to those who dared challenge fate. Under the cloak of an ink-black sky, the lovers rendezvoused near the riverbank. Amani's eyes, once proud and defiant, now flickered with a blend of hope and trepidation. Nyara, adorned in a garment woven from moonlit threads, clutched a satchel filled with medicinal herbs, lucky charms, and the priceless tokens of their clandestine love, a river stone necklace and the warrior's sash that carried the essence of Amani's identity. Their hearts pounded in unison with the rhythmic drumming of distant thunderstorms, echoing a cadence of courage and imminent loss. Just as they were about to step into the unknown, the inescapable reality of betrayal struck. Baraza, his figure dark against the chaotic backdrop of rain and lightning, emerged with a cadre of guards. His voice, cold and unyielding, shattered the knight's fragile hope. You choose death over your destiny, over the sacred path promised to you both. In an explosive scuffle that sent ripples across the turbulent river, spears clashed against desperate pleas. Blood mixed with rainwater as Amani was overpowered and bound, while Nyara's cries were drowned by the howling winds. The storm seemed to cry for them as the acacia, their silent witness through every secret, was struck by a bolt of searing lightning. Miraculously, its mighty trunk did not splinter or burn. Instead, its bark shone with an ethereal golden hue, a sign, perhaps, that the forces of nature themselves were taking heed of the lover's plight. As the guards dragged Amani back towards the village and Nyara was seized away in a haze of tears and shattered dreams, the storm intensified, as if the world itself were mourning the loss of a love that dared defy all odds. First light, when the heavy clouds finally released their fury and the land was washed anew by cleansing rains, the people of Kigalani awoke to a transformation that defied human understanding. The focal point of every whispered prayer, the ancient acacia, had changed. Its leaves, once a deep, steadfast green, now shimmered with a silver luminescence that seemed to capture the echoes of the storm. In the aftermath of the tumultuous night, the elders convened with trembling reverence, their eyes wide with awe at the miraculous sight. Among them stood Mama Taluma, Nyara's mother, whose heart pounded with a mixture of grief and a strange, budding hope. With a voice that quivered like a fragile reed in the wind, she proclaimed, "Our ancestors have not forsaken us. They have come to witness our folly and our faith. This tree, this guardian, has chosen to speak. Let its light guide us to a truth deeper than our ancient laws." Proclamation sent ripples of uncertainty and inspiration throughout the council. Even Chief Kweku, usually so unyielding in his adherence to tradition, found his heart softened by the radiant message conveyed by the living symbol. That morning, Amani and Nyara were brought forth once again, their bruised bodies and shattered dreams laid bare before the assembly. Every eye turned toward them, waiting for the declaration of fate. The atmosphere was electric, heavy with anticipation as the elders prepared to invoke the ancient ritual, a final judgment by the natural forces that governed their lives. In this moment, it was not merely about love or duty, but about the very essence of life itself, the perennial struggle between the chains of old and the liberating promise of new beginnings. Amid the solemn incantations and the murmurs of prayer, the acacia's silver leaves fluttered in the soft breeze, as if urging the hearts present to listen closely to its silent sermon. Under a pale, awakening sky, as dew still clung to each blade of grass like tears, the stage was set for the ultimate reckoning, one that would be determined not by ancient scrolls or rigid edicts, but by the very breath of nature. Amani and Nyara, bound and bruised yet unbowed, were led once more beneath the majestic acacia tree, a tree that had borne witness to centuries of sacred rites and countless whispered secrets. Here, in front of an assembly of the community, every gaze and every heartbeat, they were tasked with speaking the unadorned truth of their souls. Nyara stepped forward first, her voice soft yet unwavering, each word a testament to the depth of her inner struggle. I was taught that my destiny was written in the stars, to heal and to guide. But what is destiny if it denies us the chance to choose our own path? I see in Amani not the enemy of our ways, but the mirror of my own heart's longing. I refuse to let the chains of tradition bind me to a fate that I did not choose. Her words, tender and resolute, hung in the stillness like precious jewels. Then came Amani, his gaze steady despite the weight of his burdens. I was raised to be a warrior, to defend, to enforce, and to uphold the honor of my blood. Yet here I stand, pleading not for forgiveness, but for the freedom to be true to the pulse of my heart. If loving her makes me a traitor to tradition, then let my name be a symbol of rebellion, a reminder that sometimes the courage to love is the most honorable path of all. As their voices melded with the rustling of the silver leaves overhead, an extraordinary transformation took hold. The wind began to stir, first as a whisper, then as a crescendo of sound, sweeping across the gathering like a living, breathing force. One singular golden leaf detached itself from the acacia and fluttered down slowly, landing in Nyara's open palm. In that suspended moment, the air vibrated with an unmistakable message. The ancestors had spoken. The entire council, the gathered families, and even the hardened hearts of those who had come to witness the spectacle were united in awe, for the verdict had not been decreed by mortal judgment but by the elemental pulse of nature. In the wake of the miraculous sign, the very fabric of Kigalani began to shift. The traditional chains that had long bound love to ritual and duty now trembled before the mighty force of a truth both old and new. The moment that had once been fraught with impending loss transformed into a celebration of courage and renewal. As the ropes that had imprisoned Amani were unfastened, as the specter of sorrow lifted from Nyara's eyes, the elders stepped forward in solemn reverence. Chief Kweku, his face etched with the battle scars of 1,000 decisions, raised his ancient staff and declared, "Today we witness the rebirth of our ways. From this day forth, let no love be condemned if it is true, for our ancestors have spoken through the wind and the acacia. May this union be a beacon for all who dare to dream beyond the limitations of tradition." The words echoed throughout the hushed village and sparked an undeniable shift in the hearts of the community. In that instant, Amani and Nyara were not simply two souls who defied a predetermined fate. They became symbols of a transformative era in Kigalani, an era in which love was acknowledged as a divine force capable of reshaping customs and healing ancient wounds. As the crowd dispersed, whispers of hope and newfound possibility wove through the air like a gentle promise. Even Baraza, cast into a future of silent reflection, could only watch as the sacred acacia bore witness to the birth of a new chapter. The story of Amani and Nyara, of hearts that dared defy tradition, would be recounted for generations, a legend carried by the winds, inscribed in every silver leaf that danced in the light.